everyone, Sambo here. Welcome back to Semi Vostok. Today we are finally making use of this really empty downtown space. It's been just really bothering me for quite some time, and since it is in the downtown area, I think it's time to make this into a bit of a nice park area. So let's get into it. So first of all, there's going to be two different areas in this park, because if it's just one area, there's a lot of space you will need to detail. So what I'm going to do here, you can see that I've outlined where the top layer is going to be, and I'm just digging out where the second layer is going to be. You'll notice a lot throughout this video, I often just let it play and I just watch it just to make sure that the lower area doesn't flood, because that would be a real pest if I start building and then it's all flooding. So what we're going to do is the top level is going to have some well, you'll see it'll have more than the bottom area, but the bottom area will have a ferry station, so that'll be really handy for them just to get into the downtown area. We're also going to put in a subway station in here. There are some nearby, but we do end up changing everything around a little bit. And also we're going to extend the elevated bike path, so not just along the front of the water, but also in through the downtown as well. So we're going to connect that all up, and it's going to be one heck of an area. It really changes the whole look of the downtown area, because before it looked very just like, I don't know, it just looked like nothing really, but with this it looks really complete and really good. Another thing I forgot to mention that's going to be in here is there's going to be some residential as well, so you just have to stick around and see how all of that turns out. One thing that I was going to do is I was going to make these big grand like staircases down to the next level, down to the bottom level, but it turned out that was a little bit too hard. I don't really know how to do that in the game, so we're just going to go with some really basic I guess you'd call them ramps. So there's going to be this one right here, and then there's also going to be one on the other side. But one thing I should mention before we really get into everything, this whole area, it's not going to be symmetrical, it's not going to be perfectly aligned. You know what, it doesn't really bother me. I kind of like when things aren't exactly perfect, but I mean, I just have to point it out so I don't get like 10 million messages down below and on my Instagram, because it does get a little bit tiring when you guys keep saying the same thing over and over. So but anyway, this is where the ferry is going to be. So we have those two pathways coming down just to make it really easy, lots of option, and it does look good in front of the larger buildings as well. And that's part of the reason why the buildings are so large here, because they will be right in front of the park area, so it won't look really crowded. And that's something that happens a lot in real cities. You'll see really large buildings right in front of the park area, so it doesn't look too crowded. So anyway, this is the pathway that goes all the way up to the end of the map, and originally I was like, okay, let's just go straight over this main road here. But then I was like, hang on a second, that tram line is a little bit too high, and this whole thing is just not going to look very good. And so I just thought, you know what, let's just go down here. We have this existing bridge, pedestrian bridge that goes underneath the main road, so let's just utilize that and just keep it going from there. The other way, going over the main road, it just wouldn't have looked too good, because I would have had to make pedestrian pathways so high, and it would just look a little bit weird, just too weird. So anyway, I think this turns out good, but we're also going to continue this pathway all the way through the park area, right along where the ferry is going to be. And we're actually going to connect this pathway all the way up to the, what's it called, the campus area, because the campus area has that existing pedestrian bridge that goes across, and it goes into the old town area. But for some reason, I never really connected that pathway to the left to go into the actual downtown, but now it will be connected. So this building right here, I forget where it's from, Latvia, I think it said Latvia Biblioteka, so the Library of Latvia. So I think it was a really nice, interesting shaped building, but the only downside is the trees and the pathways that it came with looked a little bit amateurish, so I actually had to go through and redo the modeling of like the front area. So you can see now there's some flowers, some different trees and things like that. Now, of course, we needed some kind of big major statue or monument to be in the middle of the park. So this big orange one is what I ended up choosing. I don't know if that's modeled after anything. Someone can let me know down below. We also have these two really odd shaped buildings. I don't know if they're real or anything. They're kind of giving me like Iceland or Greenland vibes. I don't know. They just look really cool. But next to those big red buildings, there's also going to be a whole bunch of really fancy looking residential areas as well. So it really just makes the whole area look a little bit more, I guess upper class would be the right word. So you can see it's all starting to come together a little bit, looking a little bit nicer. One thing I should mention is I have all of these boardwalk pathways everywhere. And they are the ones that the cars can still technically drive on, but it is pedestrian oriented. So I chose that because it's just slightly wider than a normal pedestrian pathway. It looks a little bit nicer as well. But one thing you'll notice, maybe you didn't notice, but I often push them right up to the main road, but they're not actually connected as a node or an intersection. So that's just to reduce the amount of intersections on that main road. So instead of having like 3 or 4 where all of the boardwalk pathways connect, I just made it look like they connect, but they actually don't. So, but people should still be able to walk from the road pathway and then onto this boardwalk pathway. And if anyone's wondering, this is a planter fence. So it is technically a fence, but it's really nice if you want to do some nice odd shapes as well. Okay, so we are going to basically move this existing subway station. So there was one really close by, but I moved that back by about a block, and then we're actually going to put in another subway station right here because we already have the line. It goes literally almost exactly right underneath it. So I thought, yeah, why not? It is kind of close to the other ones, but I don't know. I just had this feeling that I should do it because we are going to be doing the elevated pathway, so it's going to be more connected, and then we're also going to do the ferry. Oh yeah, I wanted to make this a park, so an actual proper park. Now I'm not going to charge anyone to get in because that doesn't really matter. We're still making up to 220,000 usually. I just wanted to make it a park and encourage people to walk around and visit, and it also tells you how many people come into the area as well. So I wanted to know those figures. You can see there I'm just banning all the cars because if the cars are driving through, oh, that's not going to look good at all. No thank you. I still had to allow cars in some areas because, well, not cars, but like the garbage trucks and police and stuff like that, because they still need to get in and like check the buildings and things like that. I also wanted to use these different colored buildings. So I don't know what they're, not buildings, these plants, these trees. I don't know what they're called, but I wanted to use the different color because it just creates a nice variety, because all we have now is just a lot of different shades of green and some white flowers. So just a little bit of a yellowy color makes it really more in depth. Now on the bottom layer right here, what I was trying to do is I wanted to do basically a garden that goes right next to the wall, but you'll notice all of the trees that I use, they don't go above the next level. And the reason why I did that is because if you're up on the higher level, I don't want you to look out and then suddenly you see all of these trees that are from the lower level that are kind of growing up in front of you. So I tried to make sure all of the trees and bushes don't go too much higher than the actual the top of the seawall right there. So I mean, some of them still kind of do creep over like just a tiny little bit, but that shouldn't be too much of an issue. But generally I wanted to keep them all at a lower level. And also I just wanted to cover the wall. I like who wants to see a dirty wall just like that? I should have covered the more central part there as well, near that big rock statue thing there. But yeah, well, it's too late now. But yeah, looks pretty good actually, covering in all of that area. And then here we're just going to do some planters. Now if you guys don't have planters in your game, oof, you need them. You should get these planters because they are good. They have all different shapes. They can just basically go anywhere. They're good for filling in really awkward spaces. So like what I've done here, they're filling in that awkward space between the bike path and then the open green space. And just to finish off the area, I'm going to put in these really awkward shaped planters. I like them because they just give a nice variety. Instead of just doing square planters all the time, why not do something a little bit different? Just, I don't know, why does it matter? Why does everything have to be symmetrical? It doesn't have to be. So feel free, guys. You don't always have to be so like you don't have to follow everything so hardcore. You can be a little bit more free and fun. Like this whole area, it's not even symmetrical, and that doesn't bother me at all because I like when things aren't exactly perfect, but as long as they still look organized, then that's all that really matters. And then yeah, just finishing up here with some gazebos, some seating areas, and then basically one of the last things that we're going to do is put in this elevated pathway. So the reason why I wanted to do this pathway is because we now have such a big area that people are going to want to visit. So they're going to maybe, I don't know, maybe they'll want to go on the pedestrian bridge, then go onto the subway or the ferry, or even just hang out in the park. I don't know. But I think it's just worth having this pathway because, first of all, we do have a lot of space there. If you can see as I'm drawing it along, all of the buildings, I made them set back from that road so it's not as crowded because that road isn't as big. And I think if the buildings were right up against the road, it would look a little bit crowded. So that's why I set them back. And it's also been handy because now I can put in these pathways and like tables and food trucks and things like that. But now that we've done this, oh, I'm just checking the heights. But now that we've done that, another thing that we need to do is just add a few more different pathway connections. So we can't just do the pathway from point A to B. There has to be some little stops along the way. So we're going to do one right here. So just straight down in front of those larger buildings and then turn around. We're going to do one over here. I don't know why this area is blank. I guess the building asset disappeared. Maybe we can put something there in the future. And then the last one that we're going to do is just straight across here. I think, yeah, I moved the buildings over and then I end up putting in a new building there just to make it look a little bit more refined, I guess would be the right word. Oh, I sound like an artist. Oh, refined, all classy. And that is basically it. We're just putting in the subway line and then that is pretty much everything, you guys. So let's just check out some final shots, some final night shots just to be a little bit more classy and elegant because I don't really show the nighttime that very much, do I? No, I don't. But anyway, it looks so good, you guys. I know I say that about everything, but this really completes the whole downtown area. Maybe you guys will notice, maybe you won't notice, but I've actually put in some new buildings in the downtown area. Keep a lookout for those in the future. But anyway, I'm gonna head off now. So thank you guys for watching. Enjoy the last few little shots of this new area and I'll catch you guys next time.